PhD candidate at the Faculty of Communications and Media Studies at the Eastern Mediterranean University. I graduated from here actually in 2004, and I went to the UK and I worked there for 15 years in advertising, and then I come back and completed my master's, and now I'm doing my PhD. And I'm particularly interested in the power relations that are interlaced within language. So I tend to analyse news texts. I can obviously do this analysis on other areas of media, but I think journalism is my area that I'm more interested in.
So in your PhD now, what area are you focused on right now?
So I'm focused in power relations that's interlaced within language. So it's more in journalism that I do this analysis upon. And I use Jacques Derrida's deconstruction to do so as well. So yeah, that's kind of my area of interest.
So what made you choose journalism?
Well, it's actually a complicated story because when I graduated from my undergraduate, it was actually in radio, television and films. And then I worked in advertising. But when I come back, I wanted to do something I was passionate in, and I chose journalism because I've always loved journalism. And when I was an undergrad, I actually used to work for Gundem newspaper, and they didn't have the English pages then. So I actually established the English pages for Gundem back in 2002, I believe. So I kind of got involved with journalism during my undergraduate, and then I did some freelance journalism when I was working in London. And then, because it's my passion, that's what I continued with in terms of my education.
Okay, you worked in an advertising company for over 10 years?
Yes.
How did you feel like working in an advertising company overseas?
It was very hard work. You really need to be focused and keep on learning and keep on developing yourself to be successful, especially in a city like London. But the job had a lot of rewards. The hard work paid off. It was noticed. You could climb your career. And so, I was very fortunate in that sense that I was in a position where my hard work did pay off, working in London. But yeah, I was done with that lifestyle. It was because it was very fast paced and very difficult, and I did it for so many years, and I was happy with what I accomplished. So it was time to do something new for me, and change my own passions.
Yeah, your accomplishments so far, it's like an encouragement to so many coming forth. So let's get right into the business. You were in Sweden a few days ago.
Yes.
For a conference. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So on the 16th of March, so it was last week, I went to the city of Lund in Sweden, which is southern Sweden, for a conference called Media Breakdown and Recovery Conference. They put out a call for papers actually over 2 years ago, and I had been accepted then, purchased my tickets, was preparing to go, and 5 days before I travelled, COVID hit and everywhere was shut down and my tickets were cancelled, and so I wasn't able to go. And but I really had my heart set on going. So what I did was I followed them online and saw when they did a new call for papers, and I reapplied and thankfully got accepted again. So I was very lucky to travel to Sweden last week and attend the conference and present my research there. So yeah, it was very fruitful for me, an amazing experience for me to have gone there, especially to represent the university and our faculty there was a great opportunity and something that made me very happy to do.
What was the research about?
My research was on these same subjects. I'll talk about it briefly. So in terms of my studies, I tend to focus on news articles in relation to a particular subject. So I was analysing the Cyprus problem and how the Cyprus problem has been represented in the British media, Britain being a guarantor country in relation to the Cyprus problem. So I analysed the for a 5-year period for the Kofi Annan Peace Plan referendum. I analysed the newspapers for my master's studies research and deciphered that there was self and othering in place in the representations that the British media had made in their news articles. So where the Turkish Cypriots were othered in these news articles, and there was a lot of comparisons made between the Turkish and Greek Cypriots. So I had, found this information out, this data from my research, and I presented that at Lund University, which was a good opportunity because many of the people there didn't know in-depth information in relation to the Cyprus problem. So they had received first-hand information, and it was scientific data, which was important, not just, other information from external articles or, other programs, which tends to have ideology laced in them. It was scientific data, which is as close as the truth, hopefully, as you can get. So that was good for me to present the Cyprus problem and for people to know about the issues here from this perspective. So yeah, I'm happy with that.
So what's next? What's next after you've presented these issues down? What do you think is the next step?
Well, this was actually one of the boxes I needed to tick as well to graduate from my PhD. So it's one of the obligations, one of the criteria we need to meet. We need to present our research in an international conference. So I ticked that box. I also made some amazing contacts there, people that are now considered as friends, as we spent a few days together, from universities from all over Europe. So from in Holland University, University of Versailles in France, obviously Lund University, Glasgow University. I've made contact with professors there, so hopefully they may get more involved with our faculty and present some of their research here. So I'm hoping to establish some connections between these universities and with these instructors, these professors from across Europe, which would be great obviously for our university and for our faculty. But for me, I'm just focusing on my thesis now and a publication from my thesis in order to graduate from my PhD. And hopefully once that's completed, I can continue research on the same subject.
So how did you feel representing EMU in the midst of these prestigious universities you mentioned?
It was great for me. I was very excited. At first I was nervous because, they don't recognise the TRNC and they don't necessarily know our university. As you said, they're all prestigious universities. So it was very important that I performed well and my research was good because that's their first impression. And if it was a bad first impression, then obviously that wouldn't be good for our university. So it was very important that it was a good presentation that I performed there, and I felt it went well, but the questions that I received afterwards were so positive, and I received so much positive feedback by those professors that I'm encouraged that it went well and that their impressions were good ones.
So on a personal note, just before we round up, what's next for you after your PhD?
Well, I hope to stay on in academia. I hope to continue as an instructor, continue to teach, because I thoroughly enjoy teaching at the university now, something I do very lovingly, and I hope to continue developing myself and impart what I've learned onto my students. And I hope to continue to do research on this subject as well, because it's an area that's very under-researched. There's a massive gap in the empirical data Cyprus is very thoroughly researched from many perspectives, but this perspective is the first form of research that's happened in the representation of the Turkish Cypriots. So I hope to continue in this line of research and produce more data.
And finally, what's your advice to upcoming journalists?
Upcoming journalists, don't let anyone limit you. Research, always know your facts. And these days, obviously, with the fortunate of having technology, your options for researching are much easier. However, the pitfalls are there as well. you could receive incorrect information. So always back up, check out your information you've received. Don't let people limit you, but always remain ethical with everything you do. If it's the right thing to do to serve the people, then follow that.